but I mean, where would that data be collected in this? I mean, is there anywhere in the state where they've collected that data?
I think we're going to have to do it on site for most of it.
Yeah, it's going to take place at our treatment facility.
Okay.
And it'll take 18 months. And probably 24 months total before the optimum corrosion control treatment technique has been recommended by the district and then approved by CDPHE. And as AJ mentioned, we will go ahead and implement the soda ash in the interim as soon as possible.
Is this the state responding to the threat here of a lawsuit?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Definitely. So they're putting us through the ringer because
Right. Yeah.
one of our members threatened them with a lawsuit.
Correct.
Retaliation.
Retaliation.
Don has a question.
Yes.
Yes, given what I just heard from what AJ said, and let's say the state does decide to expedite the potash and goes with that, is there any kind of a ballpark figure for when the OPP can come out and the potash goes in?
Timeline.
Yeah, timeline. That's what I'm kind of...
Yeah.
Well, Stephen, you probably have a better idea as to how much work is involved with the capital improvements and putting those in the feed mechanism. But let me just first respond with, we need the state to review the design and approve it, and that usually takes, I mean, they've given us a verbal that they would expedite it, but I know that's going to take at least a month. And then with regard to installing the improvement, Stephen, do you have any idea?
The improvement we can have already set up and ready to implement as soon as we get approval for the design. So it really won't take more than a couple days to assemble all of the equipment and implement the new treatment technique. I think the big holdup will be with the state.
Right.
And I think a month is optimistic.
Yeah, I agree.
Based on how long they took to review the original study.
Would 3 months be more of a realistic
I think
expectation?
It'd be a fair guess.
3 months?
Yeah.
And is there a dispersal rate for when the OPP is stopped, that it takes time to finally get out of the water?
I think that based on some discussions that we've had, it's likely that the OPP could take about a month.
About a month. So we're looking at total maybe 4 months from start to finish from when if the state expedites it and the potash goes in and everything is okay, and the feed mechanisms are all right and nothing has to be looked at.
I personally would say more like 6 months.
6 months?
Myself.
Yeah.
So 4 to 6,
okay.
yeah.
Because we have been dealing with the state on a couple other issues, and they have their own timeline. For some, they have their own timeline.
Okay, thank you, AJ.
You're welcome.
Sydney?
Okay, so I heard 2 different times, so now I'm confused. I heard Don ask about, like, how long, I think, Don, you asked how long it would take for the OPP to sort of
Well, it takes
be out of the system after we stop using it, and
just based on past conversations I've had with Stephen Rogers from Brown and Caldwell, who was our ORC for the first several years of the new staff, he thought that it would take about a month.
Yeah.
Right.
For the OPP to move out of the system after the treatment technique had been stopped. And then Don's other question, as I understood it, was how long did he think, or did we think the state would take to
And that's what Chris
approve?
was responding to, the 4 to 6.
Right.
Okay, got it.
The design.
Yeah.
See, they have to approve the design.
Yeah.
Karen?
Does that include what's building up, what has built up in the pipes over the years? Because I know that's how it protects the pipes. So is that 1 month time frame including what's up in the pipes? How can we flush that out of the system?
From what I understood from Stephen Rogers, it would likely include the residual that was in the system. But I'm not going to say for sure because I don't think there's any way to know. And we do know that the residual will go away once the treatment stops. And there may be some that's built up on the,
There's
on the
nothing you can
pipes.
do about it except to make the change and let it happen.
And
Yeah.
yeah, perhaps, flushing,
Yeah,
the
give me-
residents would be a good step.
Yeah, we know that that's how it works, though. It builds up in the pipes and encapsulates the metal particles, and that's how it protects. That's the whole function of it. So that's why I was curious
No,
about
it,
it.
it coats the pipe, it doesn't, it encapsulates it, not lead
Encapsulates
and,
the metal
not the lead
particles.
and copper, no.
The
It
pipe
coats the
itself.
pipe itself and stops the lead and copper from leaching into the water. The other particles, which are iron and what other things you have in the water, that's what it encapsulates. But it coats the pipes, which stops the lead and copper from leaching into the water.
Okay.
And it can only stay there as it's continually fed each day, that coating.
Right.
So stop feeding it and the coating will disappear.
It
Yeah,
disappears.
so that's what we're talking about, is how long that coating will stay after you stop feeding it. Yeah.
Based on that original estimate from
About a month.
Stephen Rogers, it was about a month.
Okay, so, any further discussion on, the corrosion control analysis? Okay, we're gonna move on now to the elections.
Well, I'll provide just a little bit of an update from my aspect, and then AJ, if you have something else to add. AJ did appoint the election judges for the election, and the election judges are the people that assist the DEO with the counting of the actual ballots on election day. And originally, we had 3 people. 2 ended up developing conflicts and resigned their positions, and we have 2 others that stepped up. So there are still 3 election judges that will be assisting in that process. And then AJ's next step is appointing a board of canvassers, and they're the people that then review the results and make sure everything was handled appropriately and issue the official election results. Ballots were mailed out this week to people, so some people may have already received a ballot. They'll probably be trickling in anytime between, this week and the beginning of next week. People will send all of the eligible electors of the district, and how we determine who those people are is we have to get a certified list from the county assessor of property owners, and we have to get a separate list certified by the clerk and recorder of those who are eligible to vote, and then those, kind of oversimplifying the process for explanation purposes, those 2 lists are merged, and if you are a property owner but not registered to vote, you are not going to receive a ballot. Likewise, if you are registered to vote but either don't live in the district or don't own property or have your spouse own property, then obviously you won't get a ballot. So that's a process that takes a long time to develop. If there are people that think that they should have gotten a ballot, there's a method that they can go to obtain a provisional ballot, and all of the instructions for this are on the district's website. And then Joanne is also posting information at the posting locations throughout the town and the district to provide that information to people. But there is a process. If you did not get a ballot and feel as though you should have received a ballot, you apply for a provisional ballot, and then it's verified later whether whether you are eligible to vote, and those ballots are counted separately and then verified at a later date. Outside of that, AJ, is there anything else at this point that I missed on the election?
I don't think so. You gave a pretty thorough summary. It was Diane and Wedora were my original election judges, and they both withdrew. They had conflicts, as Jennifer mentioned, and my new election judges will be Betty Spear and Holly Hosner, and also Batista DeLuca. So those will be the 3 judges counting votes on Election Day, and Election Day will be Tuesday, May 8th. So on May 8th, the district's office will open from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. The election judges and I will be at the office all day, and we'll count all of those ballots, and we'll tally the votes. And then we'll post the unofficial results that evening, and then we'll convene the canvass board to verify those election results. And that'll happen within a week of the election, and that canvass board will, as I said, verify everything, and then we'll post the official results.
AJ, Jennifer, I think that I'm clear on this, but I was asked a question and I answered it, and I want to make sure that I did correctly. As far as voting in the election, a person does not have to own property. They can be a renter that lives in the district.
Correct.
Yeah.
As long as they've lived in the district for at least 30 days, then they are considered eligible. And if either they or their spouse owns property, they're also eligible, provided everybody's registered to vote. Where we run into a lot of issues are people that have their property titled in a company name, or for tax purposes or for whatever purposes, if they run a business out of their home. If they have that property titled in an LLC or a non-human being entity like an LLC, corporation, whatever, that removes them from that property ownership component for special districts. It's not like with there are other entities called general improvement district or special improvement districts that allow corporations to designate somebody to vote on their behalf. But special districts do not allow for that. It has to be an actual human being that is in ownership themselves or their spouse or lives there. So
yeah, but Jennifer, that doesn't necessarily apply to voting. I don't think it applies to being elected to the board, but
no, the requirements are the same, Parvin.
But if you have an LLC, if your business or your home is registered as an LLC and owned by an LLC, if you live there, then you should be able to vote.
If you live there,
like
if you live there for at least 30 days,
that's what I
even
meant.
if you don't own it, then yes,
Yeah,
you are
if you
able
live there
to
30
vote.
days, you're a resident in the district.
Right.
That was my point, was that a person living in the district does not have to own property to vote.
Right.
If they live there 30
That's correct.
days.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to clear up.
Right.
And you have to be a resident of the state of Colorado.
And, yeah, and to vote.
And be registered, yeah.
Okay.
Who legally determines that? The same things come up with the Emergency Services District. Is that state statute?
Yes, it's all state statute.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the reason that these structures, I find personally special districts to be really healthy structures, because it is regulated. And it just makes it a lot easier to interpret the statute when it's right there in black and white.
But there are 1,571 or so ballots going out for this election. There are some 4,000 property owners who are served by this district. It means that 60% of them are not able to vote on their own taxes or services.
If they're not a resident of the state of Colorado.
And
yes,
not registered to vote.
And not registered to vote, which, believe it or not, is much more prevalent here than I ever realized. I just assumed that people registered here, and they don't. And it was mind-boggling. And there were people that actually thought because they were members of the POA that they should be able to vote, and they never registered. And so that was what happened last time.
They can't register if they're living in Texas and have a...
No, I'm talking about residents here that have lived in this community. Yeah.
But they're being taxed the same way.
Right.
That's correct.
So,
My children own property here, but they live in Florida and they registered to vote in Florida, so they can't vote in these things.
So the 40% are determining the taxes and the service for the others who have no representation.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, I don't know what the percentages are. I don't know.
That's true in all of Colorado with any community. It's not something.
Yeah, it is.
like that.
Yeah.